All right. Are the Atlanta Falcons about to throw us all a curveball on draft night? Could they go completely off script and pull a Michael Penix Jr. type surprise again? Let's dig into what that would even look like, and more importantly, who that pick might be. Now first, let's lay down some ground rules. I can only see the Falcons going full shock the world mode if four specific players are already off the board by the time they're on the clock at pick 15. Here's the scenario. If Dallas Turner is gone to the Bears, Laiatu Latu ends up with the Saints at 9, Jared Verse becomes a Panther, and Quinion Mitchell is picked by Miami. Now Atlanta's sitting there, staring at the board, wondering, do we just force an edge rusher because that's the biggest need? Or do we stick to the plan and go with the best player available, even if it's not at a position they're desperate for? And this is where things could get spicy. If all those edge guys are off the board, the Falcons might look at someone like Malachi Starks from Georgia or Nick Emenwari from South Carolina, two safeties who've been getting a lot of buzz around Flowery Branch during the pre-draft process. So let's start with Starks. This dude has been a cornerstone for that Georgia defense from day one. I'm talking about the kind of guy who does for the secondary what Roquan Smith used to do for the linebackers. He's been the voice, the traffic cop, the brain of that defense. 42 straight starts for the Dogs. You know what they say, availability is the best ability, and he's got that in spades. Physically, he's not going to blow up the combine. 6 foot, 200 pounds, runs a 4.5, but don't get it twisted. He's not just a track guy in pads. This dude's a football player, plain and simple. He's not just about testing numbers, he's a gamer. Over his time in Athens, he racked up 6 picks, 23 pass breakups, and had a knack for being around the ball. Sure, he gave up some yardage, over 450 yards last season, but let's not get lazy with those stats. Georgia moved him all over the field. He played the nickel, the star position, lined up deep, and was in the box at times too. PFF might credit him with the yardage, but that's because he's always around the ball, always in the action. Versatility? Oh, he's got it. And in today's NFL, where offenses love to spread you out with 3 wide sets, you need more than just corners. You need a guy who can play safety, drop in the box, cover in the slot. Starks can do all of that. He's probably going to project as a true free safety in the league, but if you need him to play closer to the line, he's not a fish out of water there either. So yeah, it might not be the position fans are screaming for, but if all those edge guys are gone, this might be one of those best player available picks that actually works out beautifully. The key is whether Atlanta's war room wants to fill a need or grab the best dude on the board and roll with it. Here's the thing about the Falcons, man. They've shown us they're not scared to go off script. They'll stick to their board, trust their evaluations, and worry about the rest later. So let's keep that in mind as we continue to explore how this could all play out. Now, let's talk about the other safety, Nick Emenwari out of South Carolina. This dude is built different. Unlike Malachi Starks, who's more of your modern coverage safety, Emenwari comes in at 6'3", 220 pounds. That's basically a small linebacker playing safety. He's a physical freak, and he's been balling out since day one in Columbia. Freshman All-American. Defensive MVP as a true freshman. And last year, one of just 3 players in the country with multiple pick sixes. He's not just a box safety. He's got real ball skills too. You pull up his stat sheet from this past season, 88 tackles, 3 TFLs, 4 interceptions. And in coverage, this dude wasn't getting cooked. He allowed just 200 receiving yards all year, and quarterbacks had a rating of 37.1 when throwing his way. That's lockdown stuff. Now, unlike Starks, he didn't play that nickel role as much. He wasn't constantly lining up all over the place, so naturally, he had fewer opportunities for yards to be pinned on him. But when he was deep, he was solid. So if you're asking why the Falcons might go safety at pick 15, here's the deal. The edge rusher class is deep this year. I mean, really deep. So from Atlanta's perspective, they might be thinking, why not grab a potential Pro Bowl level safety in round 1, then snag a starting caliber edge in round 2? Flip that around, and you might end up with just a decent edge guy and a meh safety. That's the logic if they go this route. I'm not saying that's what they should do, but if they do pull the trigger, that's probably the thinking in the war room. That being said, even if the Falcons shock everyone and go safety at 15, it's not going to hit the same level of chaos as last year's Michael Penix Jr. pick. That was a full-blown earthquake. This would be more like a tremor. I still believe Atlanta leans defense, edge rusher, or D lineman. But if the top guys are gone before 15, Starks and Emanwari are the names to watch for his best player available options. All right, now before we jump into the next two players, let me just skip over the little ad break that was in there, because we don't need a commercial right now. Let's keep this thing rolling. Let's combo the next two names together since they play the same position. Kelvin Banks and Josh Conerly Jr., both offensive tackles. Now this would be a full-on Penix-style left field pick. I mean, we're talking about drafting a tackle when that hasn't really been seen as a top need. I've got them listed as the third and fourth most likely surprise picks for a reason, because honestly, this would be a shocker. But hey, remember last year? Everyone said Penix was a long shot, and boom, he's a Falcon. So I ain't ruling anything out. So here's where things get even more interesting, folks. When the Falcons' pre-draft visits list started trickling out, a couple names popped up that had a lot of people scratching their heads. Kelvin Banks and Josh Conerly Jr., both offensive tackles. Now look, Atlanta made it pretty clear at the Combine, this draft is going to be all about defense. They were locked in, laser focused. But then boom, these offensive linemen start showing up on the visit list. Some of these were full-on facility visits. Others were private workouts. Either way, the Falcons gave these guys more than just a passing glance. Now, I'm not saying they're going to pull another Michael Penix Jr. out of their back pocket, but after what they did last year, nobody's ruling anything out. They've already proven they're willing to throw a curveball, and this could be the next one. Let's start with Kelvin Banks, the big fella out of Texas. Dude's 6'5", 315 pounds, built like a house. He's got the size you want in an NFL left tackle, but there are some scouts saying, hey, maybe he's better suited as a guard, mostly because of arm length concerns. I'm not one to obsess over a quarter inch of reach. Let the tape do the talking. And the tape says this guy has been a starter at left tackle since his true freshman year and held it down for 3 straight seasons. That's no fluke. But here's the hiccup. When Texas played real competition, like Michigan and Georgia, that's when Banks got exposed a little. Gave up 3 pressures and a sack in those 2 games. Now that's not a disaster, but when you're talking about a round 1 tackle, you want a guy who holds up in the trenches against the best of the best. And when you're facing dudes like Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, and all those freaks from Georgia, that's where you earn your paycheck. Banks didn't exactly ace that test. Before we get to Josh Conerly, let me just skip over the ad that was squeezed in here about game time tickets. We're here to talk ball, not ticket apps. Back to it, Josh Conerly Jr., another potential blindside surprise. Comes in at 6'4", 311 pounds. A bit smaller than Banks, but still carries himself well. He's the kind of guy that moves smooth in space, a real athlete at the position. But we'll dive deeper into his breakdown in the next section. We're just getting warmed up, baby. Let me know when you're ready for part 4. We've still got more Falcons chaos to cook through. We're talking about some serious athletes here. One player who stands out is a massive human being who only started for the Oregon Ducks in his sophomore season. He's seen as a bit of a rough diamond, someone who has potential but definitely needs some polishing. Right now, he's not the kind of guy you'd want to throw into the starting left tackle position on day 1. There are going to be some growing pains with him. He's got a high ceiling, showing flashes of talent and some solid fundamentals, but he's also a bit raw. Let's say he's not as refined as some of the other tackles out there. Now, let me be clear. I'm giving a hard pass on taking a tackle in the first round this year. The tackle class just isn't that strong. I get the logic behind considering someone like Michael Penning, who's a lefty and can protect your blind side, but he's more of a run blocker than a pass protector. With his injury history in college, you really need to invest in keeping him healthy. But honestly, this isn't the year to reach for a tackle in the first round unless you're getting someone like Will Campbell or Olomuyiwa Fashanu, who are likely to go in the top 10. As for guys like Banks and Connerly, they're more suited for rounds 2 or 3 compared to previous offensive tackle classes. If you're looking to build up your offensive line or find a new blindside tackle, this isn't the year to do it. If you're not going to force a pick on a defensive end because the top prospects are already off the board, then don't reach for an offensive tackle who isn't any better than some of the defensive ends available at pick 15. Are you following me here? This just isn't the year to force an offensive tackle pick. If it were a loaded class, I could see the reasoning, but I don't think any of these guys would be an upgrade over what you already have with McGarry. Before we jump into the 5th and final wildcard draft target, just a quick reminder to stay tuned for all the NFL draft content coming your way. We're ramping up to bring you everything you need to know about your favorite team, and we'll be live next Thursday and Friday for the draft. You won't want to miss any of the pick analysis or breakdowns. Now let's talk about our 5th wildcard candidate, Matthew Golden from Texas. I saved him for last because he would definitely be the biggest surprise on this list. If I had to rank these surprises, it would go from least surprising like Malachi Starks to most surprising, which is Golden. The reason he's even on this list is that his stock has skyrocketed since the end of the season. On the left, you can see some of the initial big boards and top 100 rankings from the draft experts at the start of the pre-draft process. Rugger, one of my favorites, had him ranked 27th back then. Fast forward to this month, and he shot up 12 spots. Back in January, Mel Kiper didn't even have him in his top 25, but now he's sitting at 15. Daniel Jeremiah moved him from 22 to 16, and while B. Miller has been consistent, he still saw a slight bump from 17 to 16. So, it's clear that the Texas Longhorn is making waves. Now let's talk about the Falcons and what they might do in the draft. Imagine a scenario where all the top 4 players we discussed earlier, like Mike Green and Jalen Carter, are off the board by the time Atlanta picks at 15. If they want to stick to the best player available strategy, a lot of folks believe that Matthew Golden could be one of the best options left. Just take a look at Dane Brugler's big board for reference. Everyone loves to preach the best player available mantra, and I'm all for it. I'd even put it on my tombstone. But there's got to be some flexibility in that approach. For instance, would you really go best player available for a quarterback? Probably not. But what if Shader Sanders is sitting there as the best player? That's where you need to have some wiggle room. So let's say all the top 10 players are gone by the time the Falcons are on the clock. That's not too far-fetched, right? If that happens, you look at the next tier of players ranked 11 through 20. If we're sticking to the best player available philosophy, Matthew Golden at 15 could be the best guy left on the board. Now you have to ask yourself, do you want an edge rusher like Mike Williams, who's projected to go in the 20s or 30s, or do you take Golden, who could be a game changer? This is similar to the Michael Penning situation, where Atlanta might think Golden is just too talented to pass up, even if we don't have an immediate need at receiver. They could see him as a potential 8 to 10-year starter in the NFL. Let's peek at the receiver room for a moment. I think Golden could really complement Drake London and Darnell Mooney. London is your boundary receiver, and we know he'll play that role. Mooney had a lot of success in his first year with the Falcons, because they didn't force him into the slot like the Bears did. Keeping Mooney out wide is key, and I see Golden fitting in as a potential replacement for Ray McCloud after 2025. Golden could play the Z spot, which means he can line up in the backfield, slide into the slot, and even go in motion. Remember that game last year when they put London in motion on a crucial 3rd and 1 and handed it off to him? They tried it twice and it didn't work out, costing them the game. That's exactly the kind of role where Golden could thrive. As wild as it might sound for the Falcons to draft a receiver, if they feel there's no defender available who can significantly change their defense, it might make sense. If their defense isn't going to improve much, going from a C- to a C, how much are they really gaining? If they're still giving up 30 points a game, they better find a way to score 31, and Golden could be a big part of that. Now, who's your favorite non-edge rusher pick? I know edge rusher is the top priority, and I think Mike Green is the guy. But if he's gone before 15, who should the Falcons target? For me, I'd go with Nick Evers. I'm not keen on drafting an offensive tackle, and between the two safeties, I prefer Eamon Worry over Starks. As much as I love Golden and believe he's the best receiver in this class, I can't ignore the need for defense. Atlanta has invested heavily in offense in recent drafts, so it's time to bring in a defender. Pairing Nick Evers with Jesse Bates and A.J. Terrell would create a really exciting secondary for years to come.